Time for the business news now. And Will Hildebrandt joins me in the studio. Good morning, Will.
Hi, Rochelle.
Now, China has pledged more than $100 billion to finance international projects.
Yeah, that's right. This is the Belt and Road Strategy, a project that China says is really win-win. Now, the plan has been around since 2013, but China's President Xi Jinping unveiled the latest details at a forum over the weekend. Building key infrastructure that would connect Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, the International Monetary Fund says a pledge could boost global trade, investment, and financial cooperation. It may also boost China's influence. While there were delegates from more than 100 countries, including 28 heads of state, noticeably absent were regional powerhouses Japan and India. For more, let's speak to our Beijing correspondent, Brian Kibzinski. Brian, what types of projects will the Belt and Road scheme pursue?
Well, thus far, it's been a lot of talk and not as much action, but it seems pretty clear that the main focus is going to be infrastructure. We're talking about things like roads, railways, pipelines, bridges, ports, and the like there. In particular, of the projects, the very few that seem to have gotten started already, and there's about 5 to 10, one that stands out is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And what that does is it links China's far western Xinjiang province down through Pakistan, the Balochistan province, all the way down to the Gwadar port, giving China access to the Indian Ocean over there. In particular, a lot of observers are saying that one of the main reasons for this project is China's intense overcapacity and overproduction issues. So the problems are particularly concentrated in steel and coal, so we're likely to see projects that use both of these. But overall, infrastructure is the main key here.
And Brian, as you mentioned, that overcapacity coming from years of fueling the economic growth through debt and construction. Is there any risk about exporting this model abroad?
There's certainly quite a few risks there. First of all, a lot of these countries, these economies are not in especially good shape and are not necessarily prime real estate for investments. There's also security concerns. There's issues that, as I mentioned before, some of this may be intended to benefit China more than these countries themselves. In addition to getting rid of overcapacity, and as you mentioned, by influence, China is trying to expand kind of its reach or its, as you said, influence there, and also a secure access to natural resources. And so what is going to happen, what could happen rather, if these projects are being picked based on Beijing's political economic considerations, as opposed to sound economic fundamentals, they might not be especially good investments. And if that happens, the market's not interested. A lot of Chinese companies and financial institutions may have to pick up most of the burden. In addition, if they're not great investments, we're not going to necessarily see great returns, which then means that a lot of these companies will be taking on a lot of debt that they'll have trouble paying back. And if they're unable to pay back that debt, that's going to put a lot of stress on China's financial institutions, which then might lead the governments to want to bail them out. But in any case, it's certainly fraught with a lot of risks there, and Beijing is taking a big gamble.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Brian Kibzinski reporting out of Beijing.
Meanwhile, Will, a few other stories creating waves on the markets today.
Yeah, that's right. We saw Toshiba shares up about 3% after it has delayed reporting annual earnings, but warned it will likely have a net loss of 7.7 billion euros. That would mark the worst loss ever by a Japanese manufacturer. The firm has struggled with massive cost overruns at its nuclear business in the United States. Malaysia's low-cost airline, AirAsia, will set up a new budget airline in China. This through a joint venture agreement with Everbright Group. Demand in the country is set to overtake the U.S. in the next decade. Last year, air passenger journeys in China reached 487 million. AirAsia shares are up over 1%. And oil prices have jumped more than 1.5% on word that the cartel OPEC would continue cutting production from the middle of this year until March 2018. That announcement coming from Saudi Arabia and Russia in a joint statement. And despite a cut last year of almost 1.8 million barrels per day, crude prices have not moved much above $50 a barrel.
Okay, well, those were three key stories. Meanwhile, how are things shaking out on the wider markets, Will?
Well, we're seeing Asian markets really responding to what just happened over the weekend. That, of course, a G7 meeting in Italy. And there were concerns about trade protectionism. Right now, the Asian markets are mixed. The Nikkei just below the flat line, though the Shanghai Composite, Hang Seng are all up. And notably, the Kospi as well, the South Korean index, up despite North Korea's latest missile launch.
Well, buckle up for this last story. Will, drone technology could lead to flying cars.
Yeah, sorry about the bad pun there. Japan's Cartivator Group has been crowdfunding to develop the so-called SkyDrive car, which uses drone technology and has 3 wheels and 4 rotors. Now, it has a major sponsor backing the project. Toyota has announced it will give 40 million yen, just over 320,000 euros, towards developing what's claimed to be the world's smallest flying car, 2.9 meters by 1.2. It has a projected top flight speed of 100 kilometers an hour, while traveling about 10 meters above the ground. Now, sometimes we hear these sorts of projects from time to time. They're sort of the flavor of the month. Last month, Uber said it was going to pursue a flying car network by 2020.
It's just around the corner.
I'm skeptical, though.
Yeah, I'm skeptical too, but we'll see whether, the world will turn into a Back to the Future, for real. Will, thank you so much for that. Will Hildebrand there with the Business Roundup.